I stated in the previous section of this video presentation that Act 3, Scene 1's To Be or Not to Be soliloquy requires a little bit of examination. Because on the one hand, while we see that it does pair up very nicely with the Act 1, Scene 2 soliloquy, they're both about suicide, they're both about why one would wish to commit suicide, they're both about the powerless one feels in the face of corruption. It's very important that we see these two as kind of paired soliloquies, and yet there's a certain room for considerable interpretation that maybe Hamlet doesn't mean what he says on the surface here. Now, let's consider why that is. In the text that we have, Act 2, Scene 2 gives us the players who have come and they're going to put on a play. Hamlet has talked with them, and he realizes from the passionate recitation of one of these actors that he is not acting as he should. And so he says, I need to find a way to find out the truth. And so he comes up with the idea to put on a play where he will add a dozen or 16 lines, and the player agrees to that. And we later find out explicitly what he means to do is to have a play that resembles the murder of his father shown before his uncle. He's going to observe how his uncle reacts on the hopes that if he is guilty, he will be struck and will reveal his guilt. So that's what he resolves to do. In Act 3, Scene 1, which follows immediately after this, probably in the same day, Hamlet is being observed by Polonius and Claudius. Now, Polonius and Claudius, they've hidden themselves away, and Hamlet walks into the room. And then he begins to say, to be or not to be, that is the question. And on the surface, it does seem like he's weighing the benefits and detriments of suicide. But how strange is this when he has just in a previous scene decided, aha, I know what I have to do. What I have to do is put on a play. Now he has a plan. Now he has a way to figure out whether the ghost is exactly what the ghost says he is. He doesn't have to remain in doubt. And now here in this scene, he's wondering whether he ought to kill himself. When he has this plan, that sounds like a pretty good plan, and we find out later that it's going to be successful. So why this sudden change of mood in just a short space? Well, there are a couple of possible answers here. Really three possible explanations. So let's consider them. Again, the question is, why does Hamlet appear to consider suicide after deciding on a workable plan to prove his uncle's guilt, and within perhaps moments or hours in the same day? Well, number one, you could say that he suffers from intense mood swings. Now, there's something to support this reading, because as we've seen, Hamlet is a pretty emotional character. The fact that he speaks so often in hyperbole is one indication of that. The intense substance of his speeches, the fact that he's the only person wearing black in mourning for the king when everybody else is not. So a lot of indications here that he may suffer from these mood swings. He may have some sort of mental illness. Could be one reason people want to argue that he is genuinely mentally unstable. Number two, one possibility is that it's a textual problem. In some interpretations of the play, in some stagings of the play, the to be or not to be soliloquy is not in this scene. This scene where he confronts Ophelia when she tries to give back, whether it's love letters or some kind of gifts that he has given to her by way of a formal breakup. It's called the Get Thee to a Nunnery scene. Some have suggested that the to be or not to be soliloquy and the get thee to a nunnery scene, which are here together in the same scene, should actually be put in different places. And it has been in the first original text of the play, not really the original text, it was actually a pirated text. It's called the Bad Quarto. It was a pirated edition of the play given from the memory of one of the actors, probably, because it was a good way to make money. The same reason you sell pirated videos today, same reason to sell pirated plays, scripts. But in that version, the to be or not to be soliloquy and the get you to a nunnery scene are not in the same place, and it actually makes good dramatic sense for them not to be in that same scene, because for the reasons that Hamlet now has a new motive. Hamlet now has a new, as it were, lease on life, because now he's been given, at least an idea has occurred to him where he can prove once and for all whether this ghost is telling him the truth, and then he'll have more reason to act. So it makes more dramatic sense, more psychological sense, to put the to be or not to be soliloquy in a part of the play where he is more moody. And so the text that we have is actually a combination of looking at not one but three versions of the play and arranging it in this way. So the version of the play that you now have is actually a reconstruction. And as I've said, many other directors have decided it just makes better sense to put the to be or not to be soliloquy not in the same scene. So it could be a textual problem. Now, another interesting explanation is that he's faking it for Claudius's benefit. In some stagings of the play, unfortunately, Shakespeare didn't give a lot of explicit stage directions. Shakespeare is not known for giving thorough stage directions. So what this means is a lot of the staging of the play is left up to the interpretation of the director. And in some directors, the staging of the play, Hamlet comes into the room and sees Claudius and Polonius hiding behind some place, or he hears them make a noise that gives away their position, but there's some indication in the action of the play itself that alerts him that they're there. And so in order for him to keep up this madness act, he's going to ramble on about suicide. And so if he's suicidal, that's in a way going to help to put Claudius off the scent, as it were. So he's not going to be looking at Hamlet as a threat to himself when he's actively talking about being a threat to himself. So if he's not a threat to, if he's a threat to himself merely, he's not a threat to the king. So this is a soliloquy in which Hamlet isn't really alone. It's a soliloquy, but it's not. And Hamlet knows that. So he's in thinking out loud. He's not really thinking his true thoughts. He knows that he has to put on an act. Now, this again raises some questions. Well, what about that nice symmetry between the dis tutu solid flesh and the to be or not to be soliloquy? What about that nice symmetry? It's now changed, and that would be true given the actions, the way that the plot has unfolded, and now that Hamlet has this new motive. And so it looks like they're symmetrical, but now they aren't exactly, one is no longer a sincere expression of Hamlet's viewpoint, if it's true that he is just acting for Claudius's benefit. So there are three good and reasonable explanations for why there's this strange shift between what Hamlet had said in the "Oh, what a rogue and peasant slave am I" soliloquy and the to be or not to be soliloquy in such a short space, and in light of the fact that he now has a workable plan. So it raises some real questions, and so we should be alert to these dramatic issues that come up. So while there is this nice symmetry between the oh, that this too solid flesh would melt soliloquy and the to be or not to be soliloquy, that symmetry may not be all that it seems. And there are several different explanations that attempt to, for one thing, preserve that symmetry. 1 and 2 would preserve the symmetry. 1 and 2 allow that this is a sincere expression of his thoughts, whereas the third explanation, that he's faking it, gets away from that sincerity and alters the symmetry a little bit. And maybe one of the better reasons to pay more attention to the to be or not to be soliloquy is that depending on what explanation you accept, it does different things for the play. Very different things for the play, very different things for the character of Hamlet. So we should be aware of these different ways of understanding the to be or not to be soliloquy. And it's very possible that Hamlet doesn't actually mean it when he says it.